A poor mother went to pick up her son at the millionaire's house, but what she saw at the door left her speechless. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air of Sophie Dubois' small apartment. At 28, with brown hair always pulled back in a messy bun and tired green eyes, she moved with the efficiency of someone used to juggling time. Her movements were silent, trying not to wake the small being still sleeping in the next room. "Mommy!" The sleepy voice of Liam, her 4-year-old son, echoed down the hall. Sophie smiled, placing her coffee cup on the table. "Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" Liam appeared at the kitchen door, his blonde hair tousled and blue eyes bright, even after sleep. He ran into Sophie's arms, who hugged him tightly, feeling the familiar squeeze in her heart. Those blue eyes, so much like his father's, were a constant reminder of a story she tried to forget. While preparing Liam's breakfast, Sophie allowed herself a rare indulgence in memories. 5 years ago, she was a young waitress full of dreams, working in one of the city's finest restaurants. It was there that she met William Thompson, tall, charming, and incredibly wealthy. William was everything Sophie had never known. He courted her with expensive dinners and promises of a bright future. For a few weeks, Sophie allowed herself to dream of a different life. "Mom, can I have some more cereal?" Liam's voice brought her back to the present. "Of course, darling." Sophie served more cereal, watching her son with a mixture of love and concern. Liam was the best thing that had ever happened to her, even though his arrival marked the abrupt end of her romance with William. The flashback came without warning. The look of shock and then coldness on William's face when she told him about the pregnancy. His sharp words still echoed in her mind. "I'm not ready to be a father. This is not part of my plans." Sophie swallowed hard, pushing the memory away. William had offered money to solve the problem, but she refused. She chose her son, even if it meant facing the world alone. "Mommy, are you sad?" Liam asked, his small hand touching Sophie's face. She smiled, kissing his palm. "No, my love. Mommy's just thinking." The phone rang, breaking the moment. Sophie answered, her heart racing as she heard the voice on the other end. It was from the Human Resources office of a large company. They wanted to schedule an interview for an executive assistant position. As she wrote down the details, Sophie felt a surge of hope. This could be the job that would change their lives, that would give them the stability they so desperately needed. But hope soon gave way to worry. The interview would be in 2 days, during her shift at the restaurant, and Liam's daycare would be closed for routine pest control. "Is everything all right, Ms. Dubois?" the voice on the phone asked. Yes, Sophie replied quickly. "I'll be there. Thank you so much for the opportunity." Hanging up the phone, Sophie looked at Liam, who was playing happily with his toy cars on the kitchen floor. Her son was curious and affectionate, always asking questions about the world around him. He deserved more than she could offer with her waitress salary. "But Liam, honey, how about we go to the park today?" Sophie suggested, deciding to enjoy her day off. "Yay!" Liam jumped up, his eyes shining with excitement. "Can we take Mr. Bear?" Sophie laughed, nodding. Mr. Bear, a battered teddy bear that Liam carried everywhere, was practically a member of the family. As they prepared to leave, Sophie couldn't help but think about the interview. It was an incredible opportunity, but how would she take care of Liam? Her parents lived in another state, and she didn't have many close friends who could help. At the park, watching Liam run and laugh, Sophie felt the weight of her choices more than ever. Every smile from her son was a confirmation that she had made the right choice in having him, but also a reminder of the difficulties they faced. An idea began to form in her mind, an idea she immediately wanted to dismiss, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized it might be her only option. William Thompson, the man who rejected her, who rejected his own son. He still lived in the city, running his million-dollar businesses. Sophie knew this because she occasionally saw his name in the local newspapers. The thought of asking William for help made her stomach churn. But looking at Liam, seeing his innocence and joy, Sophie knew she would do anything for him, even if it meant facing the past she so desperately wanted to forget. "Mommy, look," Liam shouted, showing her a small flower he had picked. "It's for you." Sophie smiled, feeling tears in her eyes. "It's beautiful, my love. Thank you." At that moment, holding the little flower offered by her son, Sophie made her decision. For Liam's future, she would face William Thompson. The weight of that choice was enormous, but the love for her son was greater. As they walked home, Sophie began to plan how she would approach William. It would be difficult, it would be painful, but it was necessary. For Liam, she would face any challenge. The day ended with Sophie putting an exhausted Liam to bed, telling him a story about a brave bunny who overcame all obstacles. When Liam finally fell asleep, Sophie kissed his forehead softly. "Mommy will do whatever it takes for you, my love," she whispered. "Always." With a deep sigh, Sophie picked up her phone. It was time to make a call that would change everything. The shrill sound of the alarm clock ripped Sophie from a restless sleep. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, not just from the shock of the alarm, but from the anxiety of what the day held. The job interview, her big chance, was today. As she got ready, Sophie mentally rehearsed what she would say to William. Every scenario in her head ended in disaster, but she had no choice. The call to the daycare the night before had confirmed her fears. They would be closed for maintenance today. "Mommy?" Liam's sleepy voice called from the next room. Sophie took a deep breath, putting a smile on her face before entering her son's room. "Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" Liam nodded, rubbing his eyes. "Are we going to daycare today?" Sophie's heart clenched. "No, honey. Today is going to be a special day. You're going to meet someone." Liam's eyes widened with curiosity. "Who, Mummy?" Sophie hesitated. How could she explain to a 4-year-old that he was about to meet the father who never wanted to know him? "It's a surprise," she finally said, feeling guilty for the half-truth. After breakfast, Sophie sat on the worn living room sofa, the phone heavy in her hand. Liam played on the floor with his cars, oblivious to the emotional storm his mother was facing. With trembling fingers, Sophie dialed the number she had found through an internet search. Each ring of the phone made her heart beat faster. William Thompson's office. The efficient voice of a secretary answered. I need to speak with Mr. Thompson. It's urgent and personal," Sophie stammered. There was a pause. "Mr. Thompson is in a meeting. Can I take a message?" "Please," Sophie pleaded, her voice breaking. "Tell him it's Sophie Dubois. He'll remember me." A few more minutes of agonizing waiting passed before a familiar voice, deep and controlled, came on the line. "Sophie, what happened?" The coldness in his tone made Sophie want to hang up immediately, but she forced herself to continue. "William, I need a favor. It's about Liam." There was a tense silence on the other end. "Liam." "Our son," Sophie said, her voice gaining strength. "He's 4 years old now." Another silence, this one even heavier. "What do you want, Sophie?" Sophie closed her eyes, gathering courage. "I need you to look after him for a few hours today. I have an important job interview and the daycare is closed. I have no one else to turn to." The answer came quickly and sharply. "Sophie, you know I don't—" "Please," she interrupted, the words coming out in a torrent. "I know you don't want to be a father, that you never wanted to, but it's just a few hours. It's the chance of a lifetime, William. Please." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Sophie could hear her own rapid breathing, mixed with the soft sounds of Liam playing, oblivious to the conversation that could change their lives. Finally, William spoke, his voice a mixture of resignation and discomfort. "What time do you need to bring him?" The relief Sophie felt was so intense it almost made her cry. "At 2 o'clock. I can pick him up at 5. "Thank you, William. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet," William replied, his voice distant. "I'll see you at 2. With the click of the phone disconnecting, Sophie let out a shaky breath. She looked at Liam, who was now watching her curiously. "Mommy, are you crying?" Sophie hadn't realized the tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away quickly, forcing a smile. "It's nothing, honey. Mommy's just a little emotional." The next few hours passed in a blur of preparations. Sophie packed a small backpack for Liam, including snacks, Mr. Bear and some activities to keep him occupied. She dressed Liam in his best clothes, combing his blonde hair with extra care. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Liam asked as Sophie tied his shoes. Sophie hesitated again. "We're going to visit a friend of Mommy's. He's going to look after you while I go to an important meeting." The drive to William's mansion was silent. Sophie, normally chatty with Liam, was lost in thought and apprehension. What if William rejected Liam again? What if Liam realized who William really was? When they finally arrived at the imposing gates of the Thompson mansion, Sophie felt her heart skip a beat. She squeezed Liam's hand both to comfort him and to calm herself. The gates opened automatically, and Sophie guided Liam up the stone path to the front door. Before she could ring the doorbell, the door opened. William Thompson stood there, as elegant and imposing as Sophie remembered. His eyes, the same deep blue as Liam's, flicked quickly from Sophie to the child beside her. For a moment, no one spoke. The air seemed thick with tension and unspoken words. It was Liam who broke the silence. "Hi, are you my mommy's friend?" William blinked, clearly taken aback by the child's directness. Yes, I'm William, and you must be Liam." Sophie, sensing the tension, quickly intervened. "Liam, honey, this is Mr. Thompson. He's going to look after you for a few hours, okay?" Liam nodded, his natural curiosity overcoming any shyness. "Do you have toys?" A hesitant smile flickered across William's face. "I'm sure we can find something." Sophie knelt down, getting on Liam's eye level. "Be a good boy, okay? Mommy will be back soon." Liam hugged her tightly. "Okay, Mommy." "Good luck at your meeting." With a final look at William, a mixture of gratitude and warning, Sophie turned to leave. Each step away from Liam was painful, but she knew she had no choice. As she walked back to her car, Sophie heard Liam's excited voice asking William if he liked cars. The sound of the door closing behind them echoed in her ears. Sophie got into the car, her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the steering wheel. She took one last look at the imposing mansion before driving away. "Please," she murmured to herself, "let this not be a mistake." With a mixture of hope and apprehension, Sophie drove towards her interview, leaving her son in the care of the man who had once rejected them both. The soft purr of Sophie's car engine broke the tense silence as she and Liam approached the Thompson mansion. Sophie's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white with tension. Beside her, Liam gazed out the window, wide-eyed, fascinated by the large houses and manicured lawns of the affluent neighborhood. "Mommy, look at that big house!" Liam exclaimed, pointing to William's mansion as they finally arrived. Sophie swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Yes, darling, it's very big indeed." Parking the car, Sophie took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She turned to Liam, adjusting his small shirt and smoothing his blonde hair with her fingers. "Remember what we talked about, my love. You're going to stay here with Mr. Thompson while Mommy goes to a very important meeting." Liam nodded, his blue eyes shining with curiosity. "Does he have toys, Mommy?" "I'm sure he does," Sophie replied, although she had no idea what to expect. "Now, let's go." Hand in hand, mother and son walked to the imposing front door of the mansion. Sophie hesitated for a moment before ringing the doorbell, the sound echoing through the house. The door opened, revealing William Thompson. He was impeccably dressed in an expensive suit, as if he were about to leave for a business meeting. His eyes, so similar to Liam's, quickly shifted from Sophie to the boy beside her. "Hello, Sophie," William said, his voice controlled. Then, looking down at Liam, he added hesitantly, "And you must be Liam." "Hi, Mr. Thompson," Liam replied cheerfully, completely oblivious to the tension between the adults. "Your house is really big." A hesitant smile appeared on William's face. "Yes, it is. Do you want to come in and take a look?" Sophie felt a pang in her chest as Liam nodded enthusiastically and stepped forward. She gently held him back by the shoulder. "Liam, remember what I said. Behave yourself and obey Mr. Thompson, okay?" "Okay, Mommy," Liam replied, barely able to contain his excitement. Sophie turned to William, her expression a mixture of gratitude and concern. "Thank you for doing this, William. I really appreciate it." William nodded stiffly. "Don't worry, we'll be fine." With one last tight hug for Liam, Sophie forced herself to walk away. Each step towards her car was a battle against the instinct to run back and take Liam with her. But she knew this interview was crucial for her future, for Liam's future. Inside the mansion, William watched Liam with a mixture of fascination and discomfort. The boy looked around with wide eyes, taking in every detail of the luxurious decor. "Wow, do you have a castle, Mr. Thompson?" Liam asked, pointing to a painting of a European castle on the wall. William chuckled nervously. "No, I don't have a castle. It's just a painting." "Oh," Liam seemed slightly disappointed, but his attention was quickly captured by something else. "What's up there?" he asked, pointing to the staircase. William hesitated. He wasn't used to having children in his home, let alone his own son, whom he had never met before. "Well, there are bedrooms, an office." "Are there toys?" Liam asked hopefully. The question caught William off guard. Toys? He hadn't thought of that. I don't have many toys here, Liam. But maybe we can find something for you to do." Meanwhile, Sophie drove to her interview, her emotions a whirlwind. Worry about Liam, anxiety about the interview, and a complex mix of feelings towards William, all competed for her attention. "Focus, Sophie," she murmured to herself. "You can do this." For Liam. Back at the mansion, William led Liam to his office, hoping to find something to entertain the boy. To his surprise, Liam was fascinated by an old collection of miniature cars that William kept on a shelf. "Look, cars!" Liam exclaimed, his eyes shining. "Can I play with them?" William hesitated. Those cars were expensive collector's items, not toys. But seeing the enthusiasm on Liam's face, a face that, and he realized with a start, was so much like his own as a child, he couldn't refuse. "Sure," he said, carefully removing a few of the cars from the shelf. "But let's play here on the rug, okay?" Sitting on the floor with Liam, William found himself being drawn into a world of childhood imagination. Liam created elaborate stories for each car, assigning them personalities and adventures. Gradually, William found himself smiling and even contributing to the narratives. "Mr. Thompson," Liam asked suddenly, looking at William with curiosity, "do you know my dad?" The question hit William like a punch to the gut. He choked, unable to answer for a moment. Why do you ask that, Liam?" Liam shrugged, returning his attention to the cars. "Mommy never talks about him. I thought maybe you knew who he is." William felt a wave of guilt wash over him. Here was his son playing innocently, unaware that he was sitting next to the father who had rejected him before he was even born. "Liam," William began, not knowing exactly what to say. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes." Liam looked at him, confused. "Like when I spilled juice on the rug and tried to hide it." William couldn't help but smile sadly. "Something like that. Yes. But bigger mistakes. That can hurt people." "Mommy says that when we do something wrong, we have to apologize and try to fix it," Liam said wisely, returning to his play. Liam's simple words struck William deeply. He looked at the boy, seeing not only himself, but also Sophie, the woman he had abandoned 5 years ago. Meanwhile, Sophie sat in the waiting area of the office where her interview would take place. Her hands trembled slightly as she mentally reviewed her prepared answers, but her thoughts kept returning to Liam and William. "Sophie Dubois," a voice called, pulling her from her reverie. Sophie stood, adjusting her clothes nervously. "Yes, that's me. Please, come with me. We're ready for your interview." With a final thought for Liam, Sophie followed the receptionist, determined to make the most of this opportunity. She knew that, no matter the outcome, at the end of the day she would return to her son's arms. And so, while Sophie faced her interview with courage and determination, William was discovering, through Liam's innocent questions and contagious joy, what it truly meant to be a father. Two worlds that had been separated for years were slowly beginning to reconnect. Sophie nervously adjusted the collar of her blouse as she followed the receptionist down the elegant hallway. The office was impressive, with a panoramic view of the city. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "Ms. Dubois, please come in," a firm voice called. She entered the meeting room, where 3 well-dressed executives awaited her. The man in the center, with graying hair and perceptive eyes, rose to greet her. "Welcome, Ms. Dubois. I'm Robert Tanner, CEO of the company. Please have a seat." Sophie smiled, trying to hide her nervousness. "Thank you for having me." The interview began in a standard fashion, with questions about her experience and skills. Sophie answered confidently, surprising herself with her own eloquence. Years of juggling work and single motherhood had given her a resilience and problem-solving ability that visibly impressed the interviewers. "Miss Dubois," Robert said after an hour of conversation, "I must say, we are very impressed with your profile. Your ability to manage multiple responsibilities and your creativity in problem-solving are exactly what we're looking for." Sophie's heart leaped. Did she actually have a chance? Robert continued, "However, there's one detail we need to discuss. The position we have in mind for you, well, it's not exactly here." Sophie frowned, confused. "I don't understand." "We're expanding our operations," Robert explained, "and we believe you would be perfect to lead our new branch in Chicago." Sophie's world seemed to spin. Chicago, across the country. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "We understand this is a big move." The only woman in the room who had introduced herself as Diane interjected. "The package includes a substantially higher salary, relocation assistance, and of course, full health coverage for you and your son." Sophie blinked, surprised that they knew about Liam. "How?" "We did our research, Miss Dubois," Robert smiled. "We know you're a single mother, and that only increases our admiration for your accomplishments. So, what do you think? Would you like a few days to consider?" Sophie nodded, still stunned. "Yes, please, it's a very big decision." Meanwhile, back at William's mansion, something unexpected was happening. William, who had always considered himself awkward around children, found himself completely charmed by Liam. After playing with the cars, they had ventured out into the garden. Liam ran among the flowers, laughing and asking endless questions about every plant and insect he saw. "Mr. William, why do bees like flowers so much?" Liam asked, watching a bee land on a daisy. William, surprised to know the answer, explained about pollen and nectar. Liam's eyes shone with curiosity, absorbing every word. "You know a lot of things," Liam exclaimed admiringly. William felt a surge of pride he had never experienced before. "Well, there's a lot more to learn. How about we explore a little more?" The hours flew by. William showed Liam his telescope, explained about the constellations, and even improvised a small science experiment in the kitchen, much to the boys' delight. It was during a snack that Liam asked the question William had been dreading. "Mr. William, did you know my mommy before?" William froze, his glass of juice suspended in mid-air. "Why do you ask that, Liam?" Liam shrugged. "You seem to know each other, and—" He hesitated. "Your eyes are like mine." The glass nearly slipped from William's hand. He placed it on the table, trying to maintain his composure. "Liam, But before he could continue, the phone rang. It was Sophie, letting him know she was on her way. Meanwhile, Sophie drove back to the mansion, her mind a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. The job offer was incredible, an opportunity she never dreamed of having, but moving to Chicago, leaving everything behind. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Amelie. "Sophie, how did the interview go?" Sophie sighed. "It was surprising. Amelie, they offered me an amazing job, but it's in Chicago." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Oh, Sophie, wow. What about Liam?" "I don't know," Sophie admitted. "It's a big change. And speaking of changes, you won't believe where Liam is right now." "Where?" Sophie hesitated. "With William, his father." The silence that followed was deafening. When Amelie finally spoke, her voice was strange. "Sophie, I need to tell you something." A chill ran down Sophie's spine. "What?" I've kept in touch with William over the years," Amelie confessed, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to lie to you, but he asked me not to tell. He asked about Liam sometimes." Sophie felt as if the air had been sucked out of her lungs. She pulled the car over to the side of the road, unable to continue driving. "You what?" I'm sorry, Sophie, Amelie pleaded. I thought I was protecting you both. William was a mess after you left. Enough, Sophie interrupted, her voice cold. We'll talk about this later. I have to pick up my son. She hung up the phone, feeling betrayed and confused. First the job offer in Chicago, and now this. The world seemed to be turning upside down. With trembling hands, Sophie restarted the car. She needed to see Liam, needed to hold him in her arms. As for William, well, it seemed they had a lot more to discuss than she had imagined. As she approached the mansion, Sophie wondered what else this day held in store. One thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. Sophie parked her car in front of William's mansion, her hands still trembling slightly after Amelie's revelation. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to compose herself. The interview, the job offer in Chicago, her best friend's betrayal. It all swirled in her mind, but now she needed to focus on Liam. With a deep sigh, Sophie got out of the car and walked to the front door. Before she could ring the doorbell, she heard something that made her stop. Laughter. Not just Liam's cheerful, childish laughter, but also a deeper, masculine chuckle. William's. Intrigued and a little apprehensive, Sophie walked around the side of the house towards the sound. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. In the expansive backyard, William and Liam were running and laughing, engaged in a lively water fight. William, his expensive shirt now soaked, chased Liam with a toy water pistol, while the boy shrieked with delight, trying to escape. "You can't catch me, Mr. William," Liam yelled, dodging skillfully. "Oh, we'll see about that, little fugitive," William replied, his voice full of a joy Sophie had never heard before. The scene was so surreal, so different from anything Sophie could have imagined, that she felt tears welling up in her eyes. It was as if she were glimpsing an alternate world, one where William hadn't abandoned them, where they were a family. Liam was the first to notice her. "Mommy!" he shouted, running towards her with open arms. Sophie knelt down, hugging her soaked son, not caring that her own clothes were getting wet. "Hi, my love. It looks like you've been having fun." William approached, looking slightly embarrassed, but with a sparkle in his eyes that Sophie had never seen before. "Sophie, we weren't expecting you back so soon." Sophie stood up, still holding Liam. "The interview finished earlier than expected," she replied, her voice slightly hoarse with contained emotion. "Mommy, Mr. William has a huge telescope," Liam exclaimed, oblivious to the tension between the adults. "And he showed me the constellations in a giant book. Can we get a telescope too?" Sophie smiled sadly, stroking Liam's wet hair. "We'll see, darling. Now, how about you go dry off? We don't want you catching a cold." As Liam ran inside, Sophie and William stood there, a heavy silence between them. "Sophie, William began, but she interrupted him. "What is this, William?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "So you rejected him before he was even born, and now this—" William ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture that Sophie remembered well. I know I have no right, but Sophie, spending this time with Liam, it was incredible. He's an amazing boy." "He is," Sophie agreed, feeling a mixture of pride and hurt. "And he's like that thanks to me, who raised him alone all these years." William lowered his eyes, guilt evident on his face. "You have every right to be angry with me. What I did, what I didn't do, was unforgivable. But Sophie, if there's any chance at all—" "Chance for what, William?" Sophie asked, her voice rising. "To come into his life now. After 4 years, I know I don't deserve it," William said, his voice choked with emotion. "But Sophie, today changed everything. I want to be a part of his life, of your lives, if you'll let me." Sophie felt as if the ground were disappearing beneath her feet. After all these years secretly dreaming of this moment, now that it was happening, she didn't know how to react. Before she could answer, Liam came running back, now dry and in clean clothes. "Mommy, Mr. William, look what I found." He was holding an old picture frame. Sophie froze as she recognized the photo. It was her and William years ago, smiling and in love. "Mr. William," Liam asked innocently, his blue eyes, so much like William's, full of curiosity, "why do you have a picture of my mommy? Are you my dad?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie felt her heart stop for a moment, while William looked as if he had been struck by lightning. "Liam, honey," Sophie began, but her voice failed. William, to Sophie's surprise, knelt down in front of Liam, meeting the boy's gaze. "Liam," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "the truth is, yes, I am your biological father, but being a dad is much more than that. It's being present, it's loving, it's caring, and I didn't do any of that." Sophie watched, stunned, as William continued. "I made a huge mistake by not being a part of your life. Your mum is an amazing woman who took care of you all by herself all this time. If you and your mum will allow it, I would very much like to try to be a real dad to you now." Liam looked from William to Sophie, his expression a mixture of confusion and hope. "Mommy?" Sophie felt tears streaming down her face. She knelt beside William, hugging Liam. "Oh, my love, it's complicated. We need to talk a lot about this, okay?" Liam nodded, still clutching the picture frame. "But can we see Mr. William again?" Sophie looked at William, seeing in him a raw emotion she never imagined she would see. She took a deep breath, knowing that her answer would change everything. "Yes, Liam," she said finally. "We can see William again, but we'll take it slow, okay?" As Liam smiled, hugging them both, Sophie and William exchanged a look laden with emotion. The past, the present, and an uncertain future seemed to converge in that moment. Sophie knew she had many difficult decisions ahead. The job offer in Chicago, William's newfound desire to be a father, the years of hurt and loneliness. It all weighed heavily on her shoulders. But for now, in that surreal moment in William's garden, with Liam clinging to them, Sophie allowed herself to feel a small spark of hope. The future was uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, they could find a new path together. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over William's garden. Sophie, William, and Liam were sitting at a picnic table, the remnants of an impromptu snack scattered before them. Liam, exhausted after a day of play, had fallen asleep in Sophie's lap. The silence between the adults was palpable, laden with unasked questions and unexpressed emotions. Sophie absently stroked Liam's hair, her gaze lost on the horizon. William watched her, noticing the lines of worry on her face. "Sophie," William finally broke the silence, his voice soft so as not to wake Liam. "How did your interview go?" Sophie met William's eyes, hesitating for a moment. She knew that her answer would change everything again. "So it was more surprising," and she began, carefully choosing her words. "They offered me the job." William smiled, genuinely happy for her. "Sophie, that's wonderful. Congratulations, you deserve—" "In Chicago," Sophie interrupted, watching his reaction closely. William's smile vanished instantly, replaced by an expression of shock and then pain. "Chicago," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "But that's across the country." Sophie nodded slowly. "It's an incredible opportunity. The salary, the benefits. It's everything I've always dreamed of to give Liam a better life." William leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "Charles, I understand," he said, although his tone suggested otherwise. "And are you going to accept?" "I don't know," Sophie admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "Until a few hours ago, it seemed like an obvious decision, but now—" Her eyes fell on Liam, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the turmoil of emotions around him. William followed her gaze, and for a moment they both sat in silence, contemplating the boy who had changed their lives in such profound ways. "Sophie," William began, his voice laden with emotion, "I know I have no right to ask anything. What I did, abandoning you both, was unforgivable. But today, spending time with Liam, getting to know him, I can't lose this again. Please, don't take him away." Sophie felt tears welling up in her eyes. "William, you can't expect me to give up this opportunity just because you've decided, after 4 years, that you want to be a father." I know," William said quickly, reaching across the table, almost touching Sophie's hand but pulling back at the last moment. "I'm not asking you to give it up. Maybe we can find a solution. I could help financially. You wouldn't need to move." Sophie shook her head. It's not just about money, William. It's about building a career, about showing Liam that we can overcome any obstacle. And what about you? Are you really ready to be a father? Or is this just a passing whim? Sophie's words hit William hard. He opened his mouth to protest, but at that moment, Liam stirred, opening his eyes sleepily. "Mommy," he murmured, rubbing his eyes. Then, noticing William, his face lit up. "Mr. William, you're still here." The smile that spread across William's face was pure joy. "Of course I am, champ. I wouldn't go anywhere without saying goodbye." Liam sat up, looking between Sophie and William. "Can we come back tomorrow, Mommy? Mr. William said he has more constellations to show me." Sophie felt her heart clench. "Liam, honey, we can't just—" "Please, Sophie," William interjected softly. "I'd love to show Liam more. Maybe we could do an outing together this weekend. There's an amazing planetarium in the city." Liam's eyes widened with excitement. "A planetarium? What's that, Mummy?" Sophie found herself cornered. Liam's hopeful expression, William's pleading gaze, and it was too much. "We'll see, okay. Mommy needs to think about some things first." Liam nodded, although slightly disappointed. He turned to William. "Mr. William, will you visit us too? Our house isn't as big as yours, but we have cool games." William swallowed hard, looking at Sophie for guidance. She sighed, nodding slightly. "Of course, Liam," William replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'd love to visit you if your mom allows it." As they prepared to leave, Sophie observed the interaction between William and Liam, the ease with which they talked, the shared laughter. It was as if the 4 years of absence had never existed. In the car on the way home, Liam couldn't stop talking about William and all the amazing things they had done together. Sophie listened, her heart torn between the joy of seeing her son so happy and the fear of what the future might hold. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Sophie sat on the small balcony of her apartment, a cup of tea cooling beside her. Her phone blinked with unread messages, probably Amélie trying to explain herself, and the company in Chicago awaiting a response. Sophie looked up at the stars, remembering how William had taught Liam the constellations. The opportunity in Chicago was everything she had ever dreamed of professionally. But seeing Liam with William today, it was something she had secretly wished for years. Sighing deeply, Sophie realized she was facing the most difficult decision of her life. Stay and give this new family dynamic a chance, risking William disappointing Liam again, or leave for Chicago in pursuit of a promising future, but potentially depriving Liam of getting to know his father. The stars shone silently, offering no answers. Sophie knew that whatever her decision, it would change the course of their lives forever. With a heavy heart and a turbulent mind, she closed her eyes, hoping the right path would become clear with the light of day. Breakfast at Sophie's was quieter than usual. Liam, usually chatty, ate his cereal quietly, casting curious glances at his mother. Sophie, in turn, stirred her coffee absently, lost in thought. "Mommy," Liam finally broke the silence, "are we going to see Mr. William today?" Sophie sighed, placing her cup on the table. "Actually, honey, Mr. William is coming to visit us this afternoon. We have some things to talk about." Liam's eyes lit up. "Is he bringing the telescope?" "Not today, love," Sophie smiled gently. "Sus, but I'm sure you two can play a bit after we talk." While washing the dishes, Sophie reflected on the previous night. After hours of contemplation, she had decided they needed a frank conversation before any decisions were made. She had sent William a message asking him to come to the apartment. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. Sophie opened the door, revealing a visibly nervous William holding a small package. "Hi," he said softly. I brought something for Liam. I hope that's okay." Sophie nodded, letting him in. Liam rushed to greet him, his eyes shining at the sight of the package. "Is it for me?" he asked excitedly. William smiled, handing him the gift. "It sure is, champ. I thought you might like it." Liam tore open the wrapping, revealing a small astronomy kit for children. His eyes widened with excitement. "Wow! Thank you, Mr. William." Sophie watched the scene with mixed emotions. "Liam, Why don't you go play in your room for a while? Mr. William and I need to talk. Reluctantly, Liam obeyed, taking his new toy with him. Sophie led William to the small living room. They sat down, a tense silence hanging between them. William, Sophie began, her voice firm. We need to be honest with each other, for Liam's sake. William nodded, his posture tense. I agree, Sophie, I'm sorry for everything. I know words aren't enough, but I want you to know that I deeply regret abandoning you both. Sophie looked him in the eye, searching for sincerity. Why now, William? After 4 years, why do you suddenly want to be a part of Liam's life? William took a deep breath. Honestly, I was afraid of being a father, afraid of failing. But yesterday, spending the day with Liam, it was like something inside me woke up. I realized everything I'd missed, and everything I could still have. And what if I accept the job in Chicago? Sophie asked, watching his reaction carefully. William's face paled, but he remained composed. I would understand. But Sophie, I want to propose something. If you stay, I promise to help in any way I can, financially, emotionally, however you prefer. I can even use my contacts to get a similar opportunity for you here. Sophie shook her head. I don't want charity, William, and I don't want Liam to grow up thinking he can have everything just because his father is wealthy. It's not charity, William insisted. It's before Sophie could respond. Liam's voice came from the hallway. Mommy, Mr. William, can I come back now? Of course, honey, Sophie called, exchanging a meaningful look with William. Liam entered, carrying his new astronomy kit. He looked between the two adults, sensing the tension in the air. Are you fighting? No, love, Sophie reassured him. We're just talking about grown-up things. Liam frowned, thoughtful. Then, to their surprise, he asked, Mr. William, why didn't you live with us before? The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie and William exchanged panicked glances, neither prepared for this question. William, after a moment of hesitation, knelt down in front of Liam. Liam, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big ones. I made a mistake by not being in your life before, but I really want to fix that now, if you and your mom will let me. Liam looked at Sophie, confused. Mommy, is Mr. William going to live with us now? Sophie felt her heart clench. How could she explain such a complex situation to a 4-year-old? No, honey, Mr. William has his own house, but he wants to spend more time with us if you'd like that. Liam smiled. I'd like that. Can we go to the planetarium like he promised? William looked at Sophie, hopeful. She sighed, giving in. Yes, we can go to the planetarium this weekend. Liam's face lit up, but then he became serious again. Mommy, is Mr. William my dad? Like Tommy's dad who picks him up sometimes from daycare. Sophie felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. She looked at William, who seemed equally stunned. Liam, Sophie began carefully. Yes, Mr. William is your biological father, but being a dad is much more than that. It's being present, caring, loving, Mr. William wants to try to be that kind of dad for you now. But it will take time, okay? We have to go slow. Liam nodded, processing the information. Then, to everyone's surprise, he walked over to William and hugged him. Is it okay if I call you Dad someday? William, with tears in his eyes, returned the hug. Of course, champ. It would be an honor. Sophie watched the scene, her heart a mixture of emotions. The decision about Chicago weighed more heavily than ever, but seeing Liam in William's arms, she began to consider that maybe, just maybe, staying wouldn't be so bad after all. The afternoon progressed with the three of them talking, playing, and slowly beginning to navigate the uncharted waters of this new family dynamic. Sophie knew she still had much to decide, but for the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope for a future that included all three of them. The days that followed William's visit were an emotional roller coaster for Sophie. She found herself constantly torn between the exciting possibility of a new career in Chicago and the newfound family dynamic with William and Liam. One sunny afternoon, Sophie was sitting on a bench at the local park, watching Liam play on the playground. William had joined them, keeping his promise to spend more time with his son. Sophie couldn't help but notice how William seemed simultaneously delighted and terrified every time Liam called him on a new adventure. "Dad, look how high I can climb!" Liam shouted from the top of the slide, making William's heart skip a beat. "Be careful, champ," William replied, rushing closer, ready to catch Liam if he fell. Sophie smiled, watching the scene. It was strange to see William, always so composed in his expensive suit, now with his sleeves rolled up, chasing after a 4-year-old. William returned to the bench, slightly breathless. "How do you do this every day?" he asked, half joking, half serious. Sophie laughed. "Years of practice, and lots of coffee." They sat in silence for a moment, watching Liam play with other children. "Sophie," William began hesitantly, "have you thought about staying?" Sophie sighed. "I think about it all the time, William. It's a difficult decision. The opportunity in Chicago is incredible, but, William encouraged. "Yes, but seeing you and Liam together, it's something I've always wanted for him. A present father who loves him." Sophie paused, choosing her next words carefully. "However, how can I be sure you won't disappear again?" William was silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on Liam. "I understand your fear, Sophie. I know my past actions don't speak in my favor, but I can promise you I'll do everything in my power to never disappoint you both again." Before Sophie could respond, her phone rang. It was Amélie. Sophie hesitated before answering, still hurt by the revelation that her friend had kept in touch with William all these years. "Hi, Amélie," she said, her tone cautious. "Sophie, please, can we talk?" Amélie's voice sounded desperate. "I know you're angry, but I need to explain." Sophie glanced at William, who was now helping Liam build a sandcastle. "All right, can we meet at the coffee shop near my place in an hour?" After arranging the details with Amélie, Sophie approached William and Liam. "Guys, I need to go meet Amélie." "William, can you stay with Liam for another hour?" William's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of apprehension and excitement on his face. "Sure, no problem." Liam hugged Sophie. "Bye, Mommy. Daddy and I are going to build the biggest sandcastle in the world." Sophie's heart clenched at hearing Liam call William Daddy so naturally. With a last glance at the two of them, she left for her meeting with Amélie. At the coffee shop, Amélie was already waiting, nervously stirring her cup of tea. When she saw Sophie, she stood up abruptly. "Sophie, I'm so sorry," she began as soon as Sophie sat down. "I should have told you about William." Sophie took a deep breath. "Why didn't you, Amélie?" "I thought we were best friends." Amélie lowered her eyes. "At first, it was William who asked me not to tell. He was a mess after you left, Sophie. He drank too much. He was depressed. He would contact me to find out how you and Liam were doing." "And you just decided to keep that a secret for 4 years?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling with contained anger. "So I thought I was protecting you both," Amélie explained, tears in her eyes. "William wasn't in any condition to be a father, and you were moving on. But over time, he started to change. He stopped drinking, focused on his work. He always asked about Liam, wanted to know if you were both okay." Sophie remained silent, processing the information. Part of her wanted to forgive Amélie, to understand her reasons. Another part felt deeply betrayed. "Sophie, please," Amélie pleaded. "You're my best friend. I made a mistake. I know. But I did what I thought was best at the time." Sophie sighed. "I need time, Amélie. It's a lot to process." Meanwhile, back at the park, William was facing his own challenges. Liam, tired of playing in the sand, now wanted to go on the swings. "Higher, Daddy!" Liam yelled, laughing. William pushed gently, afraid of hurting Liam or letting him fall. Each squeal of delight from Liam was accompanied by a wave of love and fear in William's heart. How did Sophie make this look so easy? Sophie remained silent, processing the information. Part of her wanted to forgive Amélie, to understand her reasons. Another part felt deeply betrayed. "Sophie, please," Amélie pleaded. "You're my best friend. I made a mistake. I know. But I did what I thought was best at the time." Sophie sighed. "I need time, Amélie. It's a lot to process." Meanwhile, back at the park, William was facing his own challenges. Liam, tired of playing in the sand, now wanted to go on the swings. "Higher, Daddy!" Liam yelled, laughing. William pushed gently, afraid of hurting Liam or letting him fall. Each squeal of delight from Liam was accompanied by a wave of love and fear in William's heart. How did Sophie make this look so easy? When Sophie returned to the park, she found William sitting on the grass, Liam asleep in his lap. The scene was so tender that for a moment Sophie forgot all her worries. "Did he have fun?" she asked softly, sitting down beside them. William smiled, exhausted but happy. "He did. I think I did too, despite my constant state of panic." Sophie chuckled softly. "You get used to the panic eventually. It's part of being a dad." They sat in silence for a moment, simply enjoying the peace of the moment. "How did it go with Amélie?" William asked hesitantly. Sophie sighed. "Complicated." She explained her reasons, "but it still hurts, you know." William nodded understandingly. "Sophie, I know you have a lot to consider. The job offer, our complicated situation, but I want you to know that no matter what you decide, I'll support you both. If you decide to go to Chicago, we'll find a way to make it work." Sophie looked at William, seeing sincerity in his eyes. Then she looked at Liam, sleeping peacefully. Her heart was torn, pulled in different directions by the love for her son, the desire for professional success, and the possibility of a complete family. As the sun began to set on the horizon, Sophie knew a decision needed to be made soon. But in that moment, sitting on the grass with William and Liam, she allowed herself to just be present, appreciating the calm before the storm of choices that lay ahead. William's office was silent, except for the soft ticking of the antique clock on the wall. He was reviewing some documents when the door burst open, revealing an imposing figure, his father, George Thompson. "Dad!" William stood up, surprised. "What are you doing here?" George walked in, his face a mask of disapproval. "Is that how you greet your father, William? After weeks of ignoring my calls?" William sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Dad, I've been busy." "Busy?" George scoffed. "Yes, I've heard. Playing happy families with that waitress and her bastard." William's face hardened. "Don't call them that. Sophie and Liam are my family." George slammed his cane on the floor, his face red with anger. "Family? You threw away years of careful planning for the future of this company because of a youthful mistake." "Liam is not a mistake," William replied, his voice trembling with contained anger. "And Sophie, she's an incredible woman who raised our son alone while I was too cowardly to take responsibility." Before George could respond, the door opened again. Sophie walked in, holding Liam's hand. She stopped abruptly at the sight before her. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in a meeting," she said, starting to back away. "No, stay," William said quickly, moving to stand beside them. "Sophie, Liam, this is my father, George Thompson." George's eyes narrowed as he scrutinized Sophie and Liam. Sophie instinctively pulled Liam closer. "So this is the woman who's ruining our family's future," George said coldly. "Dad!" William exclaimed, horrified. Sophie, however, remained calm. "Mr. Thompson, I understand this situation is unexpected for you, but I assure you I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm here for Liam's well-being." Liam, sensing the tension, looked up. "Mommy, who's the angry man?" The innocence of the question momentarily broke the tension. William knelt beside Liam. "Liam, this is your grandfather, Daddy's father." Liam's eyes widened. "I have a grandpa." He looked at George with curiosity. "Dad, you like stars too?" George blinked, taken aback by the question. "Stars?" "Yeah," Liam continued excitedly. "Daddy showed me the constellations with his giant telescope. Did you know there are billions of stars?" For a moment, George's mask of coldness faltered. Yes, I knew. In fact, I gave that telescope to your father when he was about your age." William looked at his father, surprised. It was rare to see George Thompson display any emotion other than disapproval. Sophie, sensing an opportunity, interjected softly. "Mr. Thompson, I know this situation isn't what you expected for your son, but Liam is a wonderful child, and William has been an amazing father these past few weeks." George looked at Sophie, then at William, and finally at Liam. Something in his eyes shifted. William never mentioned the boy was interested in astronomy. "It's a recent development," William explained. "We've been exploring it together." Liam, encouraged by the slightly lighter atmosphere, approached George. "Do you want to see my new star book? Daddy gave it to me." George hesitated for a moment, then, to everyone's surprise, nodded. Yes, I'd like to see it." As Liam ran to get his backpack, Sophie and William exchanged glances. There was a chance here, a small opening to change things. Liam returned, proudly holding his astronomy book. George sat down in a chair, allowing Liam to approach and show him the pages. "Look, Grandpa, this is the Milky Way. Daddy said it's where we live." The use of the word Grandpa seemed to affect George deeply. His normally stern face softened slightly. Seizing the moment, William spoke. "Dad, I know this isn't what you planned for me or for the company, but meeting Liam, being a father, it's changed everything. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities. I'm embracing new ones." Sophie added, "Mr. Thompson, I'm not here to take anything away from William or your family. I just want what's best for Liam, and I believe having a father and a grandfather present is part of that." George was silent for a long moment, watching Liam turn the pages of the book, enthusiastically explaining each constellation. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer than before. "William," he said, "do you remember those summer nights when we used to look at the stars together?" William nodded, surprised by the memory. "Of course, Dad. Those were some of my favorite childhood memories." George sighed deeply. I made a lot of mistakes as a father, William. I put the company above everything, even you and your mother. Seeing you now with your son, it's like looking in a mirror reflecting the past, but one where you're making the right choices." The silence that followed was thick with emotion. Sophie felt tears welling in her eyes, while William seemed to be struggling for words. Liam, oblivious to the profound moment, tugged on George's sleeve. "Grandpa, do you want to look at the stars with me and Daddy sometime?" George looked at the boy, then at William and Sophie. Slowly, a small smile formed on his lips. "Yes, Liam, I'd like that very much." William stepped forward, placing a hand on his father's shoulder. "Dad, I'm not asking you to understand everything immediately. I'm just asking you to give us a chance. Liam, Sophie, this new version of our family." George nodded slowly. "I think I owe that to you. And to myself." He turned to Sophie. "Miss Dubois, I apologize for my earlier behavior. I hope we can start over." Sophie smiled, relieved. "Of course, Mr. Thompson, for Liam's sake." As the afternoon progressed, the atmosphere in the office changed dramatically. George listened attentively as William and Sophie recounted the past few weeks, how they were navigating this new family dynamic. Liam, happy to have everyone's attention, continued showing off his book and asking innocent questions that, without realizing it, were melting his grandfather's heart. Later, as George was about to leave, he pulled William aside. "Son," he said, "we still have a lot to discuss about the company and the future, but I'm proud of you. For taking responsibility, for being the father I wasn't always." William, touched by his father's words, hugged him for the first time in years. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." As he watched George say a warm goodbye to Liam and exchange a respectful handshake with Sophie, William felt a wave of relief and hope. The past still echoed, but now it seemed to offer a chance for redemption, not just for him, but for his entire family. Sophie approached William, intertwining her fingers with his. "Well, that was unexpected." William smiled, gently squeezing her hand. "Yes, it was. But I think, for the first time in a long time, we're all heading in the right direction." As Liam ran back to them, laughing and asking for ice cream to celebrate the new grandpa, Sophie and William exchanged a look of mutual understanding. The path ahead was still uncertain, but together, as a family, they would face whatever the future held. The calendar on Sophie's kitchen wall seemed to scream at her. The red circle around tomorrow's date was a constant reminder. It was the deadline for her decision about the job in Chicago. Sophie stirred her coffee absently, lost in thought, when Liam's voice brought her back to reality. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Sophie looked at her son, surprised by his perception. Liam was sitting at the table, drawing with his favorite crayons. His big blue eyes, so much like William's, watched her with concern. "I'm not sad, honey," Sophie replied, forcing a smile. "I'm just thinking about some important things." Liam put down his crayon and came over to her, hugging her legs. "Is it about the new job? The one in the big city?" Sophie felt her heart clench. How could she explain such a complex decision to a 4-year-old? She knelt down, meeting Liam's eyes. "Yes, love. Mommy needs to decide if we're going to a new city or if we stay here." Liam was quiet for a moment, his expression surprisingly serious for someone so young. "But if we go away, we won't see Daddy anymore." The question hit Sophie like a punch to the gut. In the past few weeks, William had become a constant presence in their lives. Trips to the park, family dinners, movie nights. It was as if they were finally living the dream Sophie had secretly cherished for years. "It's not that simple, Liam," Sophie began, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes, grown-ups have to make difficult decisions for the good of the family." Liam frowned, processing the information. "But we're a family now, aren't we? You, me, and Daddy." The innocence of the question brought tears to Sophie's eyes. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. "That must be your dad," Sophie said, quickly wiping her eyes. "Go answer it, honey." Liam ran to the door, his serious expression replaced by a radiant smile when he saw William. "Daddy!" he shouted, jumping into William's arms. William caught him, laughing. "Hi, champ, ready for our adventure today?" Sophie watched their interaction from the kitchen, her heart torn. William had transformed completely in the past few weeks. The cold, distant man she had known years ago had been replaced by a loving and devoted father. "Sophie," William greeted her, entering the kitchen with Liam still in his arms. He paused, noticing her red eyes. "Is everything all right?" Sophie nodded, forcing another smile. "Yes, just thinking a lot." William understood immediately. Putting Liam down, he turned to his son. "Hey, champ, how about you go grab that amazing drawing you made to show me?" As soon as Liam left the kitchen, William approached Sophie. "The deadline is tomorrow, isn't it?" Sophie nodded, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. "William, I don't know what to do. This opportunity in Chicago is incredible, but, William encouraged softly. "But the thought of taking Liam away from here, from you, it doesn't feel right," Sophie admitted, her voice trembling slightly. William took a deep breath as if preparing himself for something. "Sophie, I have something to show you. Something I hope will help with your decision." He pulled an envelope from his inside jacket pocket and handed it to Sophie. With trembling hands, she opened it, revealing legal documents. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "It's a contract," William explained. I bought a house, not far from here. It has a big backyard, perfect for Liam to play in. And there's enough room for all of us if you want." Sophie stared at him, stunned. "William, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to stay, both of you," William replied, his voice filled with emotion. "Sophie, I know I made terrible mistakes in the past, but these last few weeks I realize now that the life I've always wanted is right here, with you and Liam." Sophie felt the tears she had been holding back finally spill over. "William, At that moment, Liam came running back, holding a colorful drawing. "Look, Daddy, I drew our family." William and Sophie looked at the drawing. In it, 3 stick figures were smiling. A woman with brown hair, a tall man in a suit, and between them, a small boy. Above, in large, uneven letters, was written, "My family." "It's beautiful, Liam," William said, his voice choked with emotion. Liam, sensing the emotion in the air, looked from one adult to the other. "Mommy, Daddy, why are you crying?" "Don't you like it?" Sophie knelt down, pulling Liam into a hug. "No, honey, we love it. It's the most beautiful drawing in the world." William joined the hug, wrapping his strong arms around them both. For a moment, they stayed like that, a united family, the future hovering uncertainly before them. When they finally separated, Liam looked at his parents with surprising seriousness. "Mommy, we don't have to move away, do we? I like it here. I like having Daddy around. Sophie exchanged a look with William, seeing in him the same love and hope she felt. No, my love, she said softly. I don't think we need to move away. Liam's face lit up. Really? We can all stay together. William knelt beside Sophie, getting down to Liam's level. If your mommy agrees, yes, we can be a real family. Sophie looked at the two men in her life, her son, so small and full of hope, and William, the man she had never truly stopped loving, now transformed by paternal love. The decision that had seemed so difficult moments ago now became crystal clear. Yes, she said, her voice firm and filled with emotion. We'll stay. We'll be a family. The joy on Liam's face was contagious. He jumped up, hugging his parents again. We're a real family now. Can I tell Grandpa George? William laughed, picking Liam up. Of course you can, champ. I'm sure he'll be very happy. While Liam ran to get the phone, eager to share the news, Sophie and William were left alone in the kitchen. Sophie, William began, taking her hands in his. I know you're giving up a big opportunity for us. I promise I'll do everything in my power to make sure you never regret this decision. Sophie smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in years. William, I realize now that the biggest opportunity of my life is right here. A family, a home. It's all I've ever wanted for Liam, and for myself too. William pulled her close, their faces inches apart. I love you, Sophie. I think I always have, even when I was too cowardly to admit it. I love you too, Sophie whispered, finally allowing herself to say the words she had kept locked away for so long. Their lips met in a soft kiss, years of unspoken love, regret and hope melting into that moment. The sound of hurried footsteps broke them apart. Liam returned, his eyes shining with excitement. Grandpa George said he's coming to visit tomorrow. He wants to see our new house. Sophie and William laughed, Liam's happiness echoing their own feelings. Well, William said, scooping Liam up with one arm and hugging Sophie with the other, I guess we have a move to plan, don't we? As the small family excitedly discussed room colors and where to put Liam's telescope, Sophie felt a wave of gratitude. The crossroads that had seemed so daunting now opened onto a path filled with promise. The future, with all its challenges and joys, awaited. But now they would face it together, as a family. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Sophie's bedroom, finding her already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in hand. She took a deep breath and dialed the number she knew by heart. Hello, Mr. Tanner. This is Sophie Dubois. On the other end of the line, the CEO's voice sounded expectant. Sophie, good morning. I presume you have an answer for us? Sophie closed her eyes, picturing Liam's smiling face, William's loving gaze. Yes, sir. I do. Minutes later, she emerged from the bedroom, a mixture of emotions on her face. William and Liam were in the kitchen, making breakfast. The domestic scene, so simple yet so precious, made her heart leap. Good morning, my loves, she said, kissing Liam's forehead and smiling at William. Mommy, Liam exclaimed. Daddy's making star-shaped pancakes. William turned, spatula in hand, a hesitant smile on his face. He knew the importance of this day. How are you feeling? Sophie took a deep breath. I called Chicago. Silence fell over the kitchen, even Liam seeming to sense the weight of the moment. And, William asked softly. I turned down the job, Sophie said, watching their reactions carefully. But, William frowned. But I proposed something different, Sophie continued, a sparkle in her eyes. I suggested that I could lead the company's expansion here in our city, open a local branch. William's eyes widened. And they loved the idea, Sophie smiled. They said my knowledge of the local market would be an asset. I'll have the same salary, the same benefits, but we can stay here. Together? William dropped the spatula, crossing the kitchen in 2 long strides to embrace Sophie. You're amazing, you know that. Liam, not wanting to be left out, joined the hug, wrapping his arms around his parents' legs. Does that mean we're all going to live together in the new house? Sophie knelt down, meeting Liam's eyes. Yes, my love. We're going to be a family, all together. Liam's smile lit up the entire kitchen. This is the best day ever. William, visibly moved, picked Liam up. "You know, champ, it's the best day of my life too." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Moving into the new house, setting up the local office for Sophie, adjusting to everyone's new routines. But amidst the chaos, there was a palpable sense of joy and anticipation. One afternoon, while unpacking boxes in the living room of their new home, William came across an old photo album. Sitting down on the sofa, he opened it, his emotions visible on his face as he flipped through the pages. Sophie joined him, Liam close behind, curious. "What's that, Daddy?" William smiled, pulling Liam onto his lap. "These are pictures from when I was little, just like you." Liam gazed in wonder at the images of a young William. "Wow, you were a kid once." Sophie laughed, snuggling up beside them. "We all were, honey." William turned a few pages, stopping at a particular photo. In it, a William of about 5 years old smiled next to a telescope, his father in the background. "You know, Liam," William said softly, "when I was about your age, my dad gave me this telescope. That's when I fell in love with the stars." Sophie watched, touched, as William shared stories of his childhood with Liam. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle were finally falling into place. "Daddy," Liam asked, his voice sleepy after an afternoon of stories, "can we look at the stars tonight?" William exchanged a look with Sophie, who nodded with a smile. "Of course we can, champ." Later that night, the small family gathered in the backyard. William adjusted the telescope while Sophie wrapped Liam in a warm blanket. "Look, Mommy," Liam exclaimed, pointing to the sky. "The first star of the night." Sophie hugged Liam from behind, feeling William join them. "Make a wish, my love." Liam squeezed his eyes shut, his little face scrunched in concentration. When he opened them, he was smiling. "Done." "What did you wish for?" William asked, curious. Liam shook his head. "I can't tell, or it won't come true, but—" He hesitated, looking at his parents. "I think it already has." Sophie felt tears in her eyes, understanding perfectly what her son meant. William, equally moved, knelt beside them. "So you know, Liam," he said softly, "sometimes life gives us second chances, chances to fix mistakes, to make things right. You and your mom are my second chance." Sophie reached out, intertwining her fingers with William's. "And you two are mine." As the night deepened, the small family remained in the backyard, William pointing out constellations, Sophie telling old stories, and Liam absorbing everything with bright, fascinated eyes. In a quiet moment, Sophie reflected on the journey that had brought them here. How a child's love had transformed their lives, uniting them in a way she never imagined possible. Watching William and Liam, heads together over the telescope, whispering and laughing, Sophie felt a profound peace. The future, which had once seemed so uncertain, now shimmered with promise, as vast and full of possibilities as the starry sky above them. This was just the beginning, she knew. There would be challenges, adjustments, difficult moments, but with love, patience, and Liam's innocent wisdom to guide them, Sophie knew they would face it all together. As a shooting star streaked across the sky, Sophie made her own silent wish that this moment, this happiness, would last forever. And looking at her newly formed family, she knew that somehow it already had,